Today I'll be fishing a new stretch of the river, a stretch I've never fished before, I've never even seen it, and I've got no prior knowledge as to where the fish are likely to be. I'll walk along and drop a couple of baits into what I consider to be the most likely looking swims. My intention is to go back and fish each of the swims for about 20 minutes or so, maybe a bit longer if I've had a bite or I think there's a good chance of a fish. It's January the 3rd, it's pretty cold, the maximum temperature is only about 3 or 4 degrees. Even though it's cold, I'm going to try and spend as much time as possible touch edging, that's holding the line between my fingers, feeling for bites. We've just had some really high floods where properties have been flooded and the river's just dropping back now, and it's got that really nice green colour in it where I feel that I've got a really good chance of chub. This gives you an indication as to how high the water's been. You can see it's a post and wire fence completely covered in flood debris. I'm very lightly baiting up each of what I consider to be the most likely looking chub swims. I'm doing it lightly because I don't want to spoil the chances of anyone else that might come along. The water temperature is very low, so the chub aren't likely to move very far for a bait, so I've just got to hope that I drop on precisely where one happens to be. I'm also thinking about and working out how I'm going to land a chub from some of the harder looking swims that I'm baiting up. This swim looks ideal, so I bait it up a little bit more. The chub will be sheltering from predators under the cover of the tree and also looking for food where the current goes by. I'm using a pretty simple rig, a 50-gram Dren wire cage feeder and a swivel going down to a lighter hook length, and then a size 8 hook tied on with a knotless knot and a loop for inserting the pellet stop. I'm starting off touch edging. I fished the swim for a little while but didn't get any bites, so I moved on. The weather was particularly variable, with pleasant sunshine at times interspersed with cold, sharp showers. Here the current was slightly too strong for my feeder and dragged my line round too much to the left towards my own bank. In this swim I had to be particularly careful with my approach as I was fishing close under my own bank. I made 2 journeys with my kit and put it down very lightly. Also the cast was a bit tricky as I wanted to get it slightly upstream and under the cover of the tree. I laid the rod on the ground as I didn't want to disturb the swim by putting a rod rest in. I watched my rod top for signs of a bite. What a lovely looking chub. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe. I had another cast in the same swim without any bites. I threw in a couple of free offerings with a view to coming back and fishing the swim later. I filled my swim feeder before carefully approaching this swim with just my rod and my landing net. You can get some idea of the depth of the swim by seeing how long it takes your feeder to sink. I'd again filled my feeder before approaching the swim and was careful as I walked up to it not to bang. Fish feel the noise from vibrations more than they do from something like shouting. I didn't have any luck in this swim either, but you can't tell without trying. I paid out line as a cast and found that the swim was quite deep. This gave me quite a lot of confidence as I felt that the deeper water in the very cold weather would be better for the chub. I didn't get any on my first cast. I left it there for about 15 minutes, but because the swim looked so good, I thought I needed to have a second cast. I was touch edging and I felt a gradual tightening and then a slight knock. This chub is extraordinarily pretty. Look at the fins, look at the body shape, look at the scale pattern. There's just one little speck of debris on it that I didn't notice when I was filming. As usual, I threw in a couple more baits and gave us another cast to see if there was any more chub in the swim. Another nice chub with a slightly strange shape to it. This was a confidently feeding chub. It managed to bite the hair rig off. I got the hook back, but I had to tie on another hook length. I gave it another code just in case there was some more chub in the swim, but didn't get any more bites. I dropped in again in the swim where I caught the first chub. As it was getting dark, I had one more cast in the swim just above the ones that I baited up. I felt I'd done quite well. I'd located 2 swims where the chub were, and I was ready to come back to the stretch in a couple of days' time. I've returned to the stretch a couple of days later. The water level's risen, the flows increased, and the colours got slightly darker. The higher water level made this cast a bit trickier. I didn't get any in the first swim, so I went back and fished another one that I baited up earlier. This swim's quite deep on the gouged out curve, and I'd also baited it up the trip before as well as this one, and I felt I was in with a chance. Again, it was really cold, but I was still touch edging as much as I could. Next, I went back to the swim where I caught 2 in the trip before. I fished it from slightly further away this time, so as I didn't make such a definite mark on the ground where I'd been fishing. After a while I heard a sploosh on the other bank, approximately where I'd drawn the X. I'd got my phone out already, so I managed to zoom in and film an otter swimming away. However, it wasn't long before I had a tap that developed into another tap that I struck. This felt a much better fish. It's trying to get back into the tree roots. It's trying to get me into the bankside vegetation. Another almost perfect chub, this time quite a bit bigger. If you look closely, it looks like there's an old otter wound in the tail of this chub. It's well healed up though. I like to take all precautions when I put fish back after I've seen an otter. I like to make sure that they're really lively before I release them, so I left it in the landing net for quite a few minutes. I baited up and gave the swim another go in case there was another fish around. I don't think that cast was one of my best. I didn't get any more in it and tried some other swims. I'm holding my rod higher here so as there's less drag on my line from the current. I tried some deep, slower swims at the bottom end of the stretch. I didn't get any down here. In a few moments I'm going to show you zoomed in footage of when I caught the previous chub. You'll see I was touch ledgering and got a knock, then a slight tightening, and then another positive knock. That's one of the advantages of touch ledgering, that you don't have to be staring at the rod top all the while. You can be looking around enjoying the scenery. I went back to have a last little go in the spot where I caught the chub. I gave it until the light began to go. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe.